Hello, everyone, and welcome to My Thoughts Exactly, your Saturday morning feel good show that brings you, well, just about a little of everything. We have a very special show for you today. Have you ever wondered what goes on backstage at the Metropolitan Opera? I know I have. My guest today is going to tell us exactly that. He's an opera singer, he's a country western singer, he's a part of the Met Chorus, he's wonderfully talented, a wonderful musician, vocal coach, and he also studied ballet. Please welcome at the Zoom table my friend Seth Malkin. Let's go. Hello, Seth, and welcome to the show. Thank you so much for being on.
Hey, Charles, thank you so much for having me.
It's wonderful to see you again and to talk to you. And I want everyone to hear about your wonderful career in music. But before we start talking about that, let's hear a little bit about you. Where are you from? Where you grew up?
I'm from Youngstown, Ohio, which is a steel town in northeastern Ohio, right across the PA line from Newcastle.
Small, Youngstown's a small town, or?
Well, it's much smaller than it used to be, actually. It was a thriving town, sort of famous for many things, but it was also known as Little Chicago in the early part of the 20th century because there was a very powerful mafia
Mm.
in Youngstown. But I think, like everybody else in that part of the country, they went out of business.
So, how young were you when you decided that you could sing or wanted to be a singer, or did you always want to be a singer, an opera singer?
I always wanted to sing. I had no interest in opera and no experience seeing or hearing opera when I was a kid. It wasn't something we had in the house. Um, I listened to my parents' LPs, and I grew up going to a summer theater called Kenley Players, which was toured all over the United States, but they had a theater in Akron, Ohio, and the caliber of the shows was great. And it was a summer stock theater, and they employed a lot of first-rate actors, who maybe weren't so at the height of their popularity. I remember I saw Roberta Peters in The King and I saw who else? Tommy Tune there. Barry Williams of Brady Bunch fame. A lot of really terrific performances in that theater.
Well, that's more musical theater. So at first, did you think of yourself as a musical theater performer rather than the opera road?
Well, initially, I became really obsessed with ballet when I was in junior high school, and I started taking ballet classes at Ballet Western Reserve, which was a little ballet company in Youngstown, but they had a very professional um, approach. And as a matter of fact, several of their dancers in the 70s and 80s were nationally prominent dancers at Dance Theater of Harlem and Cleveland Ballet. And so I started dancing in junior high. I actually had been a tap dancer. I started tap dancing when I was 12. I wrote a I wrote a fan letter to Gene Kelly when I was 12. It's over there on the wall. He wrote me back. And then when I was, I guess, 15, by the time I was 15, I was pretty obsessed with ballet, and I wrote a fan letter to Dame Margot Fontaine, and her letter to me is up there on that wall.
Fantastic.
So when I first moved to New York, although I was singing, I was studying singing in high school at the Youngstown State University with one of the professors there because I always loved singing and it was an interest to me. But ballet, when I first came to New York, was my passion. And I came here 3 days after high school graduation to go into the NYU Summer Dance Department, but then I defected from there and I went to the New York School of Ballet up on 83rd Street, which is now the Barnes and Noble. And it was a very famous ballet school that was owned and operated by Richard Thomas Sr. his son is the actor Richard Thomas,
Yes.
who famous for the Waltons.
I,
And
I remember they owned that. Yes, that was a
yeah,
big ballet school. Yes, and Richard Thomas himself was a ballet dancer, I believe. Or
yeah, he danced with I'm going to have one of those brain things, a seizure. I won't come up with who he danced with, but um, he and his wife, Barbara Fallis, were both famous ballet teachers in New York. So I went on scholarship there for a couple of years. And even though he considered me extremely untalented
Mhm.
and said so plenty, he kept me around. And it was in his ballet school. Uh, I started taking group voice lessons with a woman who taught in one of the studios there. And she reported to Richard. Richard considered himself a career maker. So he would decide what you were going to do with your life. So she told him that she thought I had talent. And so when Richard paid for my voice lessons for a little while because I didn't have much money. I was working across the street at the Lowe's 83rd Street Quad Theater as an usher. And Richard paid for some of my lessons, and he used to give me a very hard time in ballet class. He'd say, "Why aren't you in your singing lesson?"
So the road opened up for you to be a singer. That's fantastic. When did opera come into play? Because you were taking group singing lessons, but opera is such a specific. I believe it's a specific vocal training, isn't it? I mean, it's much different than musical comedy.
Right, right. Well, like I said, you know, I studied legitimate vocal technique when I was in high school, a bit at the university. And while I was dancing in ballet companies, little ballet companies around the country, I continued my vocal studies. Like when I was in New Orleans, I studied with a wonderful woman down there. And my first opera, actually, I used to see it come on PBS back home when I was in high school, and I couldn't change channels fast enough. I was just not interested. But then the New York City Opera Tour came to Youngstown. They brought a production of Carmen, and my best girlfriend was dancing in it. So I went to go see Carmen, to see her in Carmen, and I was just completely knocked out. I mean, it was probably a very bare bones production, but we had an excellent orchestra in Youngstown, and the singers were, I thought, fantastic. And I wound up going back 3 times to see it 3 times. And strangely enough, years later, I wound up singing with a couple of those singers at Santa Fe Opera. I can't remember where else, but so that was the first time that it really nailed me. And then when I was in New Orleans, I was dancing with a ballet company in New Orleans, and we had to dance in a production of Samson and Delilah of Saint-Saëns, starring Fiorenza Casotto, who was I mean, she was a huge international star. And so we were in that production and, dancing around in gold diapers. And I was pretty, into Miss Casotto and her amazing singing.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, it kind of ramped up slowly.
Hmm. And
Um,
well, you've now sung fast forward several years. We wouldn't say many, several years. You are no, you are now you have sung all over the world. You've mentioned to me earlier that you've sung in Japan, in the Stadttheater Regensburg, and in Germany, you Canada. You've been quite all over. Seattle Opera, was it Seattle Opera you sang in? And even Alaska. And now you are a member of the Metropolitan Opera Chorus. And how is that? How is it working there? Is it a magical place to work? Is it just fantastic?
it's an amazing place to work. I mean, it is huge. On any given day, there might be 1,000 people working in that building. The chorus, the regular chorus of which I'm a part, is 80 full-time singers. We we're employed 52 weeks a year. Um, we work 7 days a week, not necessarily every week, but 7 days, meaning 7 days and nights. You know, we usually have a couple months off in the summertime. Right now, we're on furlough because of COVID since last March. And, I mean, the level at the Met is, I think it might be the biggest performing arts organization in the United States. I think that's probably a safe statement. The level is so high. The time frame is so tight. I mean, we'll do maybe 24 operas a season, different productions, right, of different shows. I used to be in 20 of them. Now I might be in 18, 19, 20. Um, but that's three operas at least, performing in repertory, alternating during the course of a single week over a month, and then rehearsing another 4 to 5 operas during the day so that those are ready to go up and start as soon as the previous operas have come down. So I mean, it's hard enough for me to keep all that stuff straight in my brain and to know what opera I'm going to be singing when I step on stage on any given night, sometimes, or who I'm going to be singing with, because that can be a surprise too. But just imagine what the stagehands and uh, all the lighting and all those people responsible for moving those behemoth sets and those costumes in and out of the theater and making sure everything is just, it's like a clock.
That's very interesting to me. I'm sure other people as well. Tell us a little bit about the rehearsal process. Like when you get like an email or a phone call from the Met that says, "Oh, we're doing this new opera next season. Rehearsals start on Monday," or if they're just reviving Carmen. uh, how much rehearsal is involved? Do you rehearse actually on stage? Is there rehearsal halls? How does
Yeah,
all that work there?
yeah. Well, it just depends. If we're doing Carmen, which we've been doing this production for many years, we might have very little rehearsal time. We'll go into List Hall, which is where they used to do the opera quiz. Maybe they still do it. We rehearse with our maestro Donald Palumbo in there. So he is a very exacting boss, and he's a brilliant musician. So he will take whatever amount of time they've given him to make sure that that opera is musically as impeccable as possible. And then we'll maybe run down to sea level, which is, we make a joke on sea level because sea level is down a couple levels. I mean, the Met is 5 stories above ground, but it's another, I don't know how many, 6 stories underground. So we'll go downstairs and there's a space that is very close to what the Met stage is. And we'll go down there and we'll tape everything out on the floor and, we'll maybe run things. Fortunately, there are a lot of people who have been in the course, like I have been for a long time. So we know in those repertory operas, we know how to hit all our marks. And we try and help the new people, find their place in the production because the staff directors have to throw up these repertory pieces that we've done many times. They have to do it in a ridiculously short amount of time, spending as little cash as possible. And then we might get a couple rehearsals on the stage. Now, for me, that's fine. Less the better if it's something I know. But imagine yourself as someone who's making her debut in Carmen at the Metropolitan Opera for the first time. I mean, some of those poor ladies are stepping on stage the first time in their debut performance. You know, they've never actually, they might walk the stage before curtain, and then they have to go out there and deliver these performances. These soloists, you know, you hear a lot about opera singers having all this attitude or being diva or, you know, that is not something we see at the Met very often,
Mhm.
very rarely, because nobody can afford that with this kind of schedule. Nobody has time for it. You have to just get out there and do your job.
Mhm.
So, and that's mostly what happens there.
Yes. Now
It's
you've
very
probably,
challenging. It's a very challenging place to work, I have to tell you.
I can imagine, and you have worked and sung with probably so many of the greats on that stage. Who are some of your most favorite opera singers, male and female?
I love singing with Anna Netrebko. She's
Beautiful.
always exciting. She's always thrilling to be on stage with. She just eats it alive, you know? And if she's nervous, and I'm sure she is, you don't see that. You just see her taking it by the throat and you know. So I think she's an inspiration. I used to love to sing with Dmitry Hvorostovsky, God rest his soul. I mean, he was a great singer who was taken way too soon. Um, who else do I love? I'm just spellbound by Sandra Radvanovsky. What she's capable of in the moment on the stage, the vocalism is and the acting is just it's stunning. Sometimes I just forget where I am when I'm listening to her. I love Jamie Barton. She's a fabulous mezzo. She's also lots of fun. Who else? Some people are just fun, like Jelko Lucic.
Are there any
That's a lot of
backstage
fun.
are there any backstage antics that you can share with us, or funny stories that might have happened through the years, or
Oh,
is it all business?
yeah. Well, I don't know how funny they are, but in the case of Jelko, you know, he's a big smoker, so he'll be off in the tunnel there smoking, and all of a sudden, you know, he needs to be on stage, and he'll just make it, or I think maybe once didn't quite make it during Rigoletto, you know, and he'll just come bursting out there, just reeking of cigarette smoke. And let's see, you know, when I think of funny stories at the Met, I always think of animals. I don't know, you know, that's the thing about opera, at least opera as I came to know it at the Met through the years, less so now, but you know, there are a lot of animals in opera. So I remember, well, there's a beautiful production, old production of Aida, which is so magnificent at the Met, which they were planning on retiring last season in favor of a new production by Michael Mayer, but then uh, I mean, it was supposed to be happen this season, but the COVID came along, and so that production didn't happen. So we may actually see that Aida again.
That's a great production.
It is. It's an amazing production. I love it. I mean, it.
Lots of animals.
Yeah. Well, so there are a couple of two very large Norwegian fjord ponies who pull Radames on in a chariot at the beginning of the triumphal scene. It is amazing. You know, it's an amazing thing. And
Yes.
then, but those ponies, they're not small ponies, they're big ponies. And they're backstage just raring to go. You know, they're pawing the ground. And I swear to God, they know their cue in the music because
Wow.
as it gets closer, they get more excited, right? And so we always have new Radamezes up there in the chariot. You know, he's got his thing over his head and he has his hand on the reins and he's going to get dragged in and sing a huge scene. So he's concentrating on that. Well, I can't remember who it was. I'm sorry, I can't remember who the tenor was because we have a lot. But those ponies, they just I don't know if they took off early. I mean, the guys are in charge of them, right? They're very careful with them, but They went and he didn't. I mean, he just flipped off the back of that chariot and we're all standing around. I was supposed to be an Ethiopian slave, which is, of course, ridiculous anyway. And and he just wound up on his back, and that chariot went out without him. And God love him, that guy jumped to his feet and ran like hell and jumped on that chariot just as it entered the wing, you know, and got out there and he did his job, you know, he
Right.
did it. So, I mean, that was a kind of a shock to us. And then, of course, sometimes the ponies are really excited. So they crap all over the stage sometimes. It doesn't happen too often. But then I and my fellow Ethiopian slaves have to go out, march out there and kneel down in that, you know, and sing the slaves chorus, um, you know, and maybe some guy in a tunic and a, you know, Ethiopian or in a Egyptian looking hat will come out with an Egyptian looking dustbin and maybe thread himself around us, scooping up poop while we're singing, you know, but it's a big stage, so you may or may not notice that.
What's your favorite opera?
Oh, that's a tough one. It depends on how tired I am, Charles, because when I'm really tired, I really love the short ones, the ones where I get to go home early. But I have to say, you know, before I even was singing opera, I was in love with La Traviata of Verdi. That Zeffirelli movie came out in the 70s, and I remember seeing it when I was at the Cleveland Ballet School, and I just loved it. Then I had a little cassette tape of that score, which was abridged for the movie, which I didn't realize. So I memorized the opera with these outrageous cuts that Zeffirelli made in it, you know. So I've always loved Traviata, and I've sung as a soloist. I've sung Traviata a lot. I've sung all the bass lines in that opera, which are several. I mean, there's the chorus bass line, there's the Baron du Fol, there's the Doctor. What else? And sometimes it can get a little confusing when I'm out there in the chorus. If it's been a long week and I'm maybe on autopilot, sometimes I sing the wrong part, or I'll sing one of the soloists' lines, which is not something they appreciate. So you have to really stay on your toes.
Yeah, that is some. Do you have a least favorite opera, or maybe you don't want to share that information?
I
One
don't
that
mind.
you groan when you hear that they're doing it, like,
Okay, there are two I can think of right off the top of my head. And it's not that I hate the opera, Lohengrin, but I really, and I appreciate Robert Wilson, you know, the director Robert Wilson. I appreciate his brilliance. He's a brilliant man. And I haven't seen that Lohengrin, but I've seen his other things, White Raven, and I've been amazed by them. But being in that opera is like being tortured to death slowly. I remember we were in these plastic armor, thank God they're plastic, these carapaces where you really can't move at all. And you're sort of out there, and Robert Wilson is all about lighting effects. So, you know, we're barely moving over the course of a 45-minute chorus, you know. And I remember once when I was in that costume, I used to wear my street clothes underneath it because then I could get out of it and run for the bus or whatever afterwards. And I remembered when I was out there that I had my cell phone in my jeans pocket on. And at the time, I had one of those flip phones with this, and the ring was like a rodeo ring. And but I was in this costume. I couldn't move. I couldn't leave the stage, and I also couldn't reach my pocket because I was in this thing. So that opera is torture. Also, Kovanchina is torture. We all get burned up in a bonfire at the end. It's not pleasant.
But I have seen you perform both. I have seen you perform on the Met Opera stage. Kirk and I have both seen you, and we've enjoyed the operas that you've been in very much. And I always spot you and I say, there's Seth. But you
Where's
also
Waldo?
do
My friends say.
what?
Where's Waldo? My friends play Where's Waldo on the HD broadcasts, spotting me.
Yes, yes. But you also have gone into your own shows, your own cabaret shows, and you've done a lot of things. I saw your show at the Triad Theater on West 72nd Street, which was phenomenal.
Thank
So,
you.
you're
Thanks for
welcome.
coming.
And I wanted to see maybe we could entice you to sing a little song for us today. Something for the beat the winter blues for our people, all our friends sitting at home that are lonely and cold and can't get out because they're quarantining and isolating. And let's send some vibes out to all these wonderful people.
All
What?
right. Well, let me make sure my guitar is in close to being in tune, because as I think I mentioned to everybody who comes to my shows, I'm a terrible, terrible guitar player, but it helps if you start out with a guitar that's in tune. You know. Okay, that's close enough.
Great. And I'm gonna change the view to just you so everyone can enjoy your song. And I'll come back in a minute when you're done and take it away, Seth. Here's Seth.
This is a song that I learned. So I married an Ecuadorian, and I was in Ecuador for a couple months, and I wanted something that I could maybe sing for his family. So I needed to learn something in Spanish. Okay, here it goes. Bésame, bésame mucho, como si fuera esta noche la última vez. Bésame, bésame mucho, que tengo miedo perderte, perderte después. Quiero tenerte muy cerca, mirarme en tus ojos, verte junto a mí. Piensa que tal vez mañana estaré muy lejos y lejos de aquí. Bésame, bésame mucho, como si fuera esta noche la última vez. Bésame, bésame mucho, que tengo miedo perderte, perderte después. Quiero tenerte muy cerca, mirarme en tus ojos, verte junto a mí. Piensa que tal vez mañana estaré muy lejos, sí, lejos de aquí. Bésame, bésame mucho, como si fuera esta noche la última vez. Bésame, bésame mucho, que tengo miedo perderte, perderte después. Que tengo miedo perderte. Non ti vayas, mi amor. Quiero tenerte muy cerca. Estaré lejos de aquí. Bésame.
That was amazing. I just wonderful. What a nice song for a winter's day in February. Thank you so much for that.
Pleasure, pleasure. Hopefully it'll heat you up a little bit.
Yes, I'm sure. Yes, it was a beautiful love song. Very beautifully done. I want to thank you for being on the show today. And I see we both have matching, not kind of matching mugs. So we'll do a little toast. I have my C mug, you have your S mug, and your middle name is Charles, I just found out.
That's right.
My
That's
middle
right.
name is not Seth, it's Vincent, but that would have been funny. Thank you so much for joining us today, and we'll see you on stage at the Metropolitan Opera. Oh, tell us a little bit about you. You also do vocal coaching, which I wanted to talk a little bit about before we say bye-bye. You have students and you do vocal coach.
Well, yes, we're casting about for things to keep us occupied, while we're not able to sing on the stages. Every performing artist, these days is trying to figure out how to stay, vital. And so I've been teaching voice lessons on Zoom. I have I have students of all ages. I have kids that are in high school and kids that are in junior high school that are getting ready to audition for the Performing Arts High School here. I have young adults who have been studying, opera. And I have a guy who's a little closer my age in Montana who, just wants to be able to be more confident singing, at family gatherings with the guitar. So, yeah,
Perfect.
I love working with those people. It's
And
been
to get in
great.
touch with you, can I put up your email address, or how do you prefer it? Through a
Yeah,
website?
that'd be great. My email address is terrific.
Great,
Yeah.
putting it up on the bottom of the screen as we speak. So anyone who wants to say hello and get in touch with you, that would be an amazing thing. And you can help them further their singing aspirations.
Yeah, if you're a singer, if you're interested in singing, I'd love to work with you.
Great. Well, thank you again. Cheers.
Cheers.
We'll see you soon. Thanks for being on the show. Bye-bye, Seth.
Pleasure, Charles.
Wasn't Seth wonderful? Besame mucho. Oh, just melted my heart. Well, thanks for watching the show, everybody. We'll be back next week on My Thoughts Exactly. I just want to show you, Kirk got me the most wonderful present. In the 1970s, there was a magazine called After Dark, and it was a publication, they called it an entertainment magazine, but it was a publication that basically catered to a gay LGBT audience. These are some back issues that Kirk found on eBay. We got a whole stack of them, so I'm just enjoying going through them. This one obviously has Lucille Ball on it when she came out in the movie Mame. And Bette Midler was kind of their poster child, being on the magazine's cover at least twice and always on the pages of the magazine. Anyway, thanks for watching, everyone. If you like the show, please subscribe. I'd love to have you as a subscriber, and we'll see you next week for more interesting things on My Thoughts Exactly. Bye-bye.